But this is Brent Allen Winters, commonlawyer.com, www.commonlawyer.com, coming at you from the remote hinterlands of the Wabash River Valley, where the hogs, the frogs, and the dogs keep up a racket all night long. Let's go to the Catechism of the Constitution of the United States. Is this the law of God, the Constitution of the United States? In that it is consonant with the laws of nature. That phrase from our Declaration of 76. The laws that God has created in the universe that we can observe, in that it is consonant with the laws of relationships between things and things, things and men, and men and men, and men and women, and men and children, and men and their neighbors, in that it is consonant with the way God has designed that, the relationships between all the parts of his creation. Our Constitution of the United States is good law. And it's been my discovery over many decades of looking at it, reading it, studying it, and using it in the courts, that it's consonant. And it is consonant with that other revelation from God himself, written, called the Bible. It is consonant with the Bible. If it's consonant with the Bible, our observations of reality around us, then it's good law. Our Constitution of the United States is not the Bible. It is not the direct product of God himself. It is not inerrant. Our common law, our observations, sometimes we make errors. And I can find a couple of things in our Constitution of the United States, that are off a little. Yeah. Well, we're off, and I test them against this book. This book is the final court of last resort. This is the lawgiver's will expressed. It says in here he's not willing. It is not his counsel. It is not his fixed plan that any should perish. That's his will. Well, what do you call that? The will of the prince is law. The will of the primary powers that be. He is the foremost personality in his creation. His will is law. He says, thou shalt not murder. His will is law. Don't make a false separation, and it's false to separate grace from law. No, there is a law of faith, the Bible says, a law of grace, the way God operates, the way his relationship with us by faith through grace. That's the way things are. Here's a good definition for law. The way things are, and they ain't going to change. Why? Because God, Hebrews chapter 13, is the same yesterday, today, and forever. His will does not change. He doesn't tremble. What he says is going to happen, going to happen. Yep. Oh, relax, friends. The laws of nature and the laws of nature is God. So we're going through the Constitution, and I see some things here we take issue with. Question 59 of the Stansbury's Catechism on the Constitution. Are all the senators chosen at the same time? That's United States senators. As members of the House of Representatives are chosen at the same time every 2 years. Every member of the House of Representatives is up for a vote, up or down. He may get unelected. All of them at the same time, but the U.S. Senate is not that way. Listen to what he says. Let's see if he's right. No, only 1/3 are chosen at a time. Only 1/3 of what? 1/3 of the U.S. Senate are chosen every 2 years. Every senator's term is 6 years long. Every congressman's term is 2 years long. Every senator's term is 6 years long. And every 2 years, 1/3 of the U.S. Senate stands for election. 2 years after that election of that third of the Senate, 2 years later, another third is chosen. They stand for election. And 2 years after that, another third is chosen, so that every 2 years, 1/3 part of the senators go out of office. Their term is up. They may get reelected, He says out of office. That's not really accurate, but I know what he means. But they stand for election. Their term is up in 6 years. They got to run again. But the same person may again be chosen if the legislatures who choose them before wish to send them again. Now, when he says out of office, that's not accurate. Again, what he's saying is at the end of 6 years, a U.S. senator's term is up, and he stands for re-election every 6 years. But 1/3 of the U.S. Senate stands for re-election. There's an election of 1/3 of them every 2 years. It's staggered, see? Why? So that the U.S. Senate doesn't have any radical changes. The United States Congress, you watched. They'll flip from absolute control of one party to absolute control of another in 2 years. Now, back when I was a political animal and running for Congress, at that time I was running, the House of Representatives had been under the control of the Democrats since the 1950s. Over 40 years. 40 years. And then that flipped in 1994, and the Republicans took control after 40 years of Democrat rule. You never know what's going to happen, but it remains that every congressman stands for election every 2 years, and every senator stands for re-election every 6 years. The same person may again be chosen for U.S. Senate if the legislatures who choose them before wish to send them off again. If not, they send others in their place. He's referencing here the way it was, the way the Constitution was written, that U.S. senators are not voted into office by the people of their state. The Constitution, as originally written, says that U.S. senators were to be voted in or out, stand for re-election every 6 years before the legislature of their state. That's what the Constitution established. Unfortunately, we have changed that. We should not have. We should not have allowed it. Now every U.S. senator stands for election statewide, popular vote. How old must a person be before he can be chosen a senator of the United States? He must be 30 years of age, at least. What about a member of the House of Representatives? He must be 25 years of age, at least. Question 61, can he be chosen if he has not been born in the United States? Can you be a U.S. senator if you weren't born in the United States? If you're not a natural-born citizen? That's the requirement for president. Answer, yes. You don't have to be born here to be a U.S. senator. You don't have to be born here to be a state governor. Remember the gubernator? The gubernator out in California? Arnie Schwarzenegger? He was born in Austria. His father was an SS officer in Hitler's regime. But he can become senator or governor if he has become a citizen of the United States through the process of what's called naturalization, and has been a citizen for 9 years. You've had to have been a citizen of the United States for 9 years to become a U.S. senator to run for that office. Question number 62. Can a senator for one state be chosen by the legislature of another state? Answer, no. The legislature of each state must choose its own senators from persons residing within the state's boundaries. Raw territoriality. Remember Hillary? We wish we could forget her. She wasn't from New York. She got an apartment there and ran for U.S. Senate. She didn't know sick 'em from come here about New York. But She had resided in New York. She had to have resided to be elected senator, so she got an apartment or something. Is that good? It happens a lot. Remember, I told you about the guy that ran for U.S. Congress. I met him at a meeting when I was running, and he was running for U.S. Congress in a primary for the third time in 1 year. The states have their primaries at different times. He went to one state and ran in the primary for U.S. Congress and lost. He moved residence to another state, ran for primary and lost, and now he was running for a primary in our state. Newt Gingrich, very famous Speaker of the House, very powerful man. 1994, he orchestrated the takeover of Congress in 1994 from the Democrats. He wasn't from Georgia. Congressman from Georgia. He did a study and found out where he thought he could be elected, and he went there and ran. Moved, set up residence, and ran. Of course, you're subject to attack if you do that, and it doesn't always work. Question number 63. Let me see if I finished that one. No, yeah, wait. Does the Senate choose the Speaker of the House as the House of Representatives chooses the Speaker of the House? Answer: no. See, the House of Representatives chooses their own Speaker. And so when a guy wants to be Speaker of the House of Representatives, he has to run for Speaker. He has to hobnob with all the members. He has to glad hand them. He goes, oh yeah, and this happened to me. A guy wanted to be Speaker of the House. His name was Livingston. Remember, he's from Louisiana, and he was a descendant of the signer, one of the signers of the Declaration of 76, named Livingston. He wanted to be Speaker of the House of Representatives, and so he came and campaigned for me to try to help me get in, so I would owe him, and then when I got in, I would support him, Speaker of the House, which at that time I was glad to do. As it turned out, he quit. Fascinating thing that happened. He confessed wrongdoing against his wife, said he wouldn't participate in the impeachment of Bill Clinton because he was no better. He did it on public television. I saw him do it, and quit. Something good about that, isn't there? The Bible says if a man hides his sin, he will not prosper. Hide it from who? The priest? The preacher? The sheriff? No. Do you hide it from God, or do you tell him about it? He knows anyway. He just wants to hear it from you. My dad applied to board education to the seat of knowledge. He knew what I did wrong, but he always wanted me to tell him. I did the same thing with my children. That's an important thing to do, friends. They need to say it out loud. Grown-up folk need to say it out loud. Why? It's what God commands. It's called confession. No, it won't buy you salvation. Keep this in mind. Confession of sin, confession of wrongdoing before God is the product, the fruit, the result of having been born from above. It's the result of salvation, the result of God making you safe. Salvation is not the result of confession. You're a new creature, you're born from above, that's what you want to do, and you'll do it. Because you want to do what God says, and the will of the sovereign is what? He says, confess. What's the will of the sovereign? Law. See, once you become a Christian man or woman, you want to please your Father. You want to do what he says. You want to learn what he wants you to do. You want to learn this book. Does the Senate choose the Speaker as the House of Representatives? No. Answer: no. The person who is chosen by the people to be the Vice President of the United States is made by the Constitution President of the Senate. The person who is chosen by the people of the United States to be Vice President of the United States is made, the Constitution makes that person President of the Senate. President, that means the that presides over. That's all it means. The up front guy. Pre means before. Preside is a Latin root word that means to sit before, to be up there running the meeting. The vice president is the presider of the Senate. His duties are like those of the Speaker of the House of Representatives, except that he is not obliged to keep order in debate. He's not obliged. He can try to do that if he wants to. Not obliged, in other words, not obligated. There are other officers of the U.S. Senate are the same in all, other officers of the U.S. Senate are the same in all respects as those of the House of Representatives and are chosen by the senators in the same manner. Yeah. Well, this is Brent Allen Winters, commonlawyer.com, and this is question number 63. We'll be ready for question number 64, the $64 question. Coming up next time, Lord willing, we dive into Stansbury's Catechism on the Constitution of the United States, published in 1828.